Handstand push-up is a great exercise for developing upper body strength and core strength. And not to mention, it's a very impressive display of overall strength and body control. It's a challenging exercise. It takes a lot of strength and control to get up to that point. But in this video, I'm going to show you some tips. I'm going to show you the ideal form, the way it should look like, which I'm still working on myself. As you guys have been following me, I've been doing calisthenics for just slightly over 2 years now. April, May, June. 2 years and about 2 months, 2 years and 1 month. And you guys can do it too. In this video, I'm going to show you some of the exercises that I use to help get me there, and some of the techniques I used. The goal is to go down at a deep angle while keeping your body in a straight line, and then pushing back into a straight handstand. Now, you may normally see handstand push-ups performed going straight down almost, with their shoulders aligned with their wrist, or their head just coming down to the floor, or maybe just barely coming slightly forward. And this may be an alright way to start. I didn't start off doing them this way. I felt like it just lacked too much range of motion. It doesn't take nearly as much strength or body control to do a handstand push-up going straight down. So if you're doing handstand push-ups against the wall and you're going like straight down, say you're against the wall with your back facing the wall and you're doing handstand push-ups straight down, that technique is probably not going to help you too much with doing the ideal handstand push-up, where you want to go down at a deep angle, touch your nose to floor even, and then come back up. And the deeper you go, the deeper the angle, the more of the range of motion that you have to push through, the harder it's going to be. But this is good because we want to progress deeper and deeper so that we can progress to more advanced exercises, such as the 90-degree push-up, which I cannot do yet, the tiger bend push-up, which I've done a few of and I'm still training that, and very deep handstand push-ups, let's say on a ledge or on parallels. You've got to go really deep. So doing your handstand push-ups on the ground, aiming for getting a deeper and deeper angle, is going to help you progress not only to developing more strength and body control within the handstand push-up on its own, but you'll be able to progress to these harder skills that I want to be able to progress to, and then I'm sure that you do too. First thing that I want to point out is that, as I mentioned earlier, the ideal form is keeping your body in that straight line the entire time. That means no arching the lower back, which we do often to compensate. We're trying to use our lower back muscles and our feet to help just drive us up into the handstand. And I'll show you what that looks like. See how I arched my lower back? I went into an anterior pelvic tilt. An anterior pelvic tilt looks like this. Your pelvis tilts forward, tilting it backwards, creating a flat, straight lower back. Is a posterior pelvic tilt, and that's what we want to keep and hold throughout the entire handstand push-up. So when I'm doing the handstand push-up, I'm focused on holding this, on keeping my butt tucked in, and holding that posterior pelvic tilt the entire time. Sometimes I overhold it a little too dramatically, and that's when you can see my legs come down deep. Instead of being in the perfect straight line, my legs drop down lower. But I still think that's better than arching your lower back. So I'm holding the posterior pelvic tilt right now already. I'm not relaxed like this. I'm tight like this. And if you're not holding your handstands tight like that, while holding a posterior pelvic tilt and squeezing your glutes, then you should start now, because it's going to help you a lot with the overall body control. And the second thing I want to point out is when you're going down, try to hold a slight shoulder protraction. That's where you're pushing your shoulders out, away from the spine, like this. So I'm trying to push down, kind of hold that. I'm not really thinking about going like this, bringing my shoulders together, but rather I'm trying to hold them apart, like that. And I feel like that gives me more support, and just overall more support, makes my body tight, Essentially, it's a hollow body position. Hollow body is protracted shoulders combined with a posterior pelvic tilt. If you do a hollow body hold on the floor, it should look like this. Your lower back should be touching the floor. Your shoulders should be off the floor, slightly protracted. So I'm going to attempt another handstand push-up. I say attempt because I feel like I've been doing them all day now. And when I'm doing it, like I just mentioned, I'm holding that posterior pelvic tilt, and I'm holding a slight protraction in the shoulders, kind of trying to keep my shoulder blades away from the spine like this, as much as I can. As you can see there, once you start getting tired, you kind of start compensating by breaking that posterior pelvic tilt a little bit, and that's when your lower back arches to get you up there. And you know what? That's fine on your final reps, and that's fine if you're just starting off. That's how mine looked in the beginning, really sketchy, until I got more upper body strength, until I got more core strength. But just keep in mind that that's not how you want to keep on performing it. Eventually you want to working on getting that body in a straight line and holding that posterior pelvic tilt the entire time, which is what I'm working on. And I think my posterior pelvic tilt breaks around my third or fourth handstand push-up. So I'm still learning too, guys. A lot of people don't realize it takes a lot of core strength to hold that posterior pelvic tilt throughout the entire movement and keep your body stable. Which brings us to our first exercise, the hollow body hold that I just showed you. And like I mentioned, your lower back needs to be touching the floor. It should not be arched like this, but it should be touching the floor, and your shoulders should be off the ground. So an easy way to start this, or an easier way to start this, is by first having your hands down to the side, having your feet tucked. Now engage that posterior pelvic tilt, make your lower back touch the floor, then take your feet off the floor. Just hold this for a minute, and then hold it right here. And we're keeping our lower back flat on the floor the entire time. The lower down. And then take our shoulders off the ground. And ideally, you can be right here. Holding that might look easy, but it's very challenging. Try to hold a hollow body hold for up to a minute and you'll see what I'm talking about. Just keep that lower back on the floor. If it's touching the floor, that means you're holding your posterior pelvic tilt right. Your abs should be squeezed tight and your shoulders be off the floor. The second exercise are going to be hollow body push-ups. So what we're going to do is take that hollow body position with posterior pelvic tilt combined with the protraction of the shoulders. Protraction, and we're going to hold that the entire time we're doing push-ups. So rather than just doing your normal push-ups like this, where your shoulder blades are retracting on the way down, we're going to try to hold that protraction on the way down like this. At the same time, we're holding that posterior pelvic tilt the entire time. We're never letting our butt be relaxed or our lower back arch out. It can be really challenging holding that shoulder protraction, but just try to hold it as much as you can on the way down and touch your forehead to the floor and then push your way up, holding that protraction, keeping that posterior pelvic tilt engaged. If you're learning a handstand push-up I'm going to assume that you can already do a frog stand to a handstand or a bent arm handstand press. And if not, then these are two exercises that are going to help you a lot with your handstand push-up. So that's the next one, is frog stand to handstand. It's very similar to a handstand push-up. You're just starting from less range of motion. See, when you're handstand push-up, you're at an angle right here. And when you're in a frog stand, you're at an angle also. Practice doing reps, frog stand to handstand, up and then back to frog, back to handstand. This is what I started doing in the beginning, and that helped me get a lot of bent arm press strength. After I learned the frog stand and handstand, I started learning the bent arm handstand press. And I learned it from a straddle position, with my feet spread. And at first I would fall into it and use a little bit of momentum like this, until I could try to get my feet higher and higher. Till eventually and then you quit using a momentum. And then from there, to make the bent arm press a little bit harder, you can keep your feet together to a pike press. You can force yourself to go through slightly more range of motion by leaning more forward, just like you can in the handstand push-up. And then come down to a negative. And then that obviously includes negative handstand push-ups. Starting from a handstand and just coming down into a handstand push-up, as slow and controlled as possible. Quick reminder, when you're doing all these exercises, when you're pushing to a handstand, especially on your handstand push-up negatives, make sure you're holding that posterior pelvic tilt. Don't forget about that. Don't let your lower back arch. Don't do a handstand negative like this. No. Hold that posterior pelvic tilt. Just like this. Keep your body in that straight line. And the final exercise are pike push-ups. And I mentioned these a lot in several videos because they're really important for developing handstand push-up strength, from frog stand to handstand strength, or any kind of bent arm handstand press strength. And to make it easier, start off with your legs spread far apart. To make it even easier, the closer that your shoulders are over your wrists, the easier will be. And that's probably how you normally see them. But we want to progress it to a deeper angle to make it as close to a handstand push-up as possible. So we want to get our shoulders in front of our wrists. So we're going to progress further and further. To progress from that position, make it even more challenging, keep your feet together, and then remember, progress deeper and deeper. We want our shoulders further in front of our wrists. So it'll be easier this way at first, and then start progressing that lean. And when I'm doing my pike push-ups, I'm focused on holding that shoulder protraction. I'm not just letting my shoulders relax and come back and retract. I mean, they're retracting, they have to an extent. But the more you focus on holding that protraction, you'll have a stronger support in your upper back, all right here. So when I'm doing my pike push-ups, see my upper back, I'm trying to keep it round and strong. I'm not just going like this and trying to retract my shoulders. I'm trying to hold that protraction just like a hollow body push-up. And you can make the pike push-up even more challenging and closer to a handstand push-up by elevating your feet on a higher surface. That about covers it for this handstand push-up video, and I hope these tips and these exercises help you. One final thing I would like to point out, which I mention a lot, is the hand positioning, the hand grip. Make sure that you're not just doing your handstands with your hands in a flat position. Don't have your hands just flat like this in your handstand, or when you're trying a handstand push-up. But really grip the ground with the ends of your fingers, the flat ends. Not like this, but like this. So your palm and the flat ends of your fingers will be really firm on the ground, and grip it and squeeze it tight. So really get a grip with the ground. You're holding that posterior pelvic tilt, your shoulders are slightly protracted, that hollow body position is making your body just really tight. And so it only makes sense to clench with your hands and make those tight too. So our whole body is tight, our feet are together, our toes are pointed, and we're just one single unit. We're not arching our back, our feet aren't spread apart, our hands aren't relaxed and flat. We're really tight, and we're really focused and concentrated on doing this exercise. Alright, but that wraps up this video. I'll try to do one more for the ending, but I think I'm all handstand push-ups out today. Let's see what happens. I can't even, if I can even do a handstand. My shoulders are like, please. Get away from me, fly. The hollow body hold that I just brings us to exercise number 1. Why am I doing this? Why am I cutting the board?